Well, Shredder seems to have gotten his hands on the Hyperstone and is now threatening to take over the world again, and that's never a good sign. See, the Hyperstone is serious business, and with it, Shredder decides to evaporate Manhattan and the Statue of Liberty as an example of his newfound power. And you know what that means. It's now up to everyone's favorite lean green ninja team to stop Shredder and restore order back to the city. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Hyperstone Heist was released by Konami exclusively for the Sega Genesis in 1992 and follows the plotline and gameplay of Turtles in Time pretty closely, despite a few differences that allow the Hyperstone Heist the ability to be classified and respected as its own standalone game. The Hyperstone Heist plays almost exactly the same as the original Ninja Turtles arcade game or its popular sequel, Turtles in Time. It's a two-player cooperative arcade-style adventure that mainly consists of ripping apart the Foot Clan over the course of 5 tough levels on your way to stop Shredder and Krang from taking over the planet. The player has the choice between one of the 4 turtle heroes and can be switched out to another character after continuing. Each turtle plays pretty much the same, although they do have certain strengths. For example, Donatello and Leonardo have easily the longest reach. Like most fans of the Turtles, I of course have my favorite that I always play with, which is Raph, despite his short reach. One really neat addition to the options menu is the ability to choose between 2 distinct graphic styles for the Turtles, which are anime and comic. In the anime mode, they are roughly all the same color like in the original animated series, and in comic mode, they're all colored with a different shade of green, just like the comic book. It's a really cool feature to add in, especially for fans of both series. As I had said before, there are a total of 5 stages in the Hyperstone Heist, all complete with bosses at the end of each level. You may notice that 5 is a lot less than some of the other Ninja Turtles games, but the stages in the Genesis version are much longer overall than in Turtles in Time or the original arcade game. You'll notice quite a few of the bosses from the television show like Leatherhead, Rocksteady, and Baxter Stockman, as well as Tatsu, who was a Genesis exclusive boss who made his first appearance in the Ninja Turtles live-action film. I'm definitely glad that Tatsu was added in. He was always such a cool character, and it's nice to finally see him in video game form. Ninja Vanish! You can change the difficulty setting as well as set different options for number of lives and continues, as well as earn an extra guy with every 100 enemies defeated. There are also pizzas that can be picked up to restore some health, as well as another type of pizza that will turn your turtle into a whirling tornado of foot-slaying carnage, but it'll only last just a few seconds. The Hyperstone Heist is a good-looking Turtles game and is extremely faithful in representation to its arcade and Super NES cousins. The characters and bosses are all big and colorful and animate really well, even with tons of stuff going on at once. All 5 stages are distinct and different from one another and look great. The background details really pop, and each stage is drawn well, with lots of background layers and scrolling. I especially like Tatsu's level with the Japanese temple, and of course the Technodrome level at the end of the game. You'll also take on a fair amount of different enemies, from tons of different foot soldiers to Mousers, robots, and you'll even have to avoid obstacles and traps like logs on the surfing level, lasers, or even cars that can run over you if you're not too careful. This is a Ninja Turtles game, and it wouldn't be a good one without a kick-ass soundtrack. Hyperstone Heist doesn't disappoint in that area, and does borrow some of the rockin' tunes from Turtles in Time. The sound effects all sound really good too, although the voice samples are a little garbled in comparison to the arcade and Super NES Turtles games, but that's still pretty commonplace as far as the Genesis hardware goes, and won't end up detracting from your enjoyment of the game. Either way, everything still sounds great and meets and exceeds the quality that you would expect from Konami in their excellent Ninja Turtles series of games. The Hyperstone Heist plays very fast and fluid, and the control scheme works wonderfully on the Sega Genesis. It takes advantage of the 3 buttons on the Genesis controller, and button assignments can be switched around in the options menu. You'll use 1 button to attack, 1 to jump, and then 1 that will allow your turtle to dash when held down, which can be especially useful in tight quarters or when fighting some of the bosses. I really enjoy the Hyperstone Heist. It's a solid yet underrated game that stands on its own against the arcade original and, of course, Turtles in Time. In some ways, I actually prefer the Hyperstone Heist over Turtles in Time. The game feels more to the point and not as time-consuming, and the gameplay in the Genesis iteration feels much faster and responsive than any other game in the series. I would highly recommend the Hyperstone Heist to any Genesis owner who's a fan of the Ninja Turtles and wants a great arcade-style action game based on the franchise, or anyone who enjoyed the original arcade game and NES port. As always, guys, thank you for watching and subscribing, and until next time, stay classic.